Hello and welcome to the Spread NESN's Football Picks podcast. I am NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined once again and as always by Ricky Doyle. Ricky, happy Super Wildcard Weekend to you.
Why, thank you. Right back at you, Mike.
Not to get off on a complaint already. I hate that they added the Super. I refuse to call it that. I just did that it was mocking more than anything. I don't want to be on record as someone who's referring to it as that. It's just a Wildcard Weekend. We will get into our picks. We're going to whip around the league, rip around the schedule. We're going to go every game. We've kind of changed things up here for the playoffs. I did want to get to a few things in the course of our conversation. We'll do some Super Bowl talk at some point as well. But yeah, what do you think about the wild card weekend?
I'm in on it. I talked myself into it already.
Just this one in general, or this one, or the round in general?
Well, this one in particular.
One's sick. This
one in particular. I mean,
expansion.
Generally speaking, I enjoy wild card weekend, but usually it's the divisional round that I get more excited about. Yeah. You just kind of picking through the leftover teams at this point.
You get a lot of blowouts this week.
But I actually think this year there are some pretty good matchups on wild card weekend.
It fell as well as it could, I think. If you go back and look at last week going into this weekend, like what are the best matchups that you could get? I think you look at Sunday especially, and you're like, oh, this kind of fell right.
This is like, it really makes no sense, but it's even in looking at some of the matchups, it's like, oh, I could have envisioned that like 6 or 7 weeks ago.
Yeah,
like for some reason, like Lions Rams. I feel like we could have sat here in week 9 and I'm like, and talked about these hypothetical situations, and I'm like, oh, if the Lions run into the Rams, and here we are.
That would have been good foresight because I think the Rams weren't very good in week 9. But
about a week 11, I think
it was right around there. The last 8 games that they really turned it on. So but like
a lot of storylines, a lot of narratives. I've even talked
myself into like a Browns Texans Saturday afternoon game.
Sure.
There's narratives there, but yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get into it. Dolphins Chiefs is a game that if you told me week 9, I'd start salivating coming off of, I don't know, when was it? That was probably right around the Germany game too, which was a fine game. I don't totally remember.
Yeah. It was a 7-point game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Sunday afternoon, 4:30 rolls around. You're going to be firing up Cowboys Packers, and it's going to feel like 1995 all over again. So there's a lot to get excited about. Monday night, maybe find something else to do. But that game. Well, I mean, we'll get into it, but I can't make heads or tails of it. Don't really care about it. Yeah, pretty exactly. We will get into all those. We'll just kind of give our leans, or maybe we'll make one formal pick, whether it's at the total or the side itself. A lot of good teaser options this week as well. We don't usually talk about that a ton, but there are some games that really stand out in that regard. Maybe we'll get to that. Before we do, we have to do a quick check-in. The regular season is over for us as well. This was something that probably we wouldn't have done had I not gone nuclear over the last 2 months.
You did.
I looked it up. I'm something like, so I was 48, 24 and something over a certain amount of time going into last week, and then I went 11-5.
You were the Rams.
So that pretty much.
You are the Rams.
So I think like 30 games over 500 in the second half of the season. So I went 11-5. You went 6-10. I finished the regular season with a 135, 125, and 12 record. 3 games ahead of you at 132, 128, and 12. So
above 500.
Coin flips across the board, as always. Yeah,
all we're really looking
for. Even with like
stay in the black.
The hottest streak of my entire picking life, still just barely over 500. So that kind of tells you.
We got home.
Yep. So I guess that's something to feel good about. Some trends to kick around here. Underdogs are 20-10 against the spread in wild card games since 2017, but just 13-17 outright. We've got some quarterbacks making their first career playoff starts. Those quarterbacks since 2003 over the last 20 postseasons are 21-38 against the spread. And this is one that I didn't realize until I wrote it down, but this is going into 2020, so the numbers may have changed a little bit. Home favorites of a touchdown or more are 11-1 straight up and 10-2 against the spread. So that's something to keep in mind as we get to Sunday, especially for a couple of those games. Do you want to get into it?
Let's do it.
So we start Saturday afternoon in Houston. You got the Texans, the AFC South champions, hosting the Cleveland Browns, the upstart Cleveland Browns coming in with Joe Flacco. This might as well be the 2012 Ravens.
What did we say right before he came on? That you're into the optics of certain matchups?
Yeah.
The optics on this one.
This one's not good. So this is This is one where I found out I have plans at 2:00 on Saturday afternoon where I have to go visit some family. Not broken up about it. I hope to get home in time for the second half of this game, and then we'll just kind of rejoin the progress, because the idea of this game I like when you've got, CJ Stroud making.
I'm kind of in on this game.
Yeah, like
more probably than I should be.
No, but aesthetically, I don't like it at all. It's in Houston. I hate that place too. It's a weird one. But the Browns currently, according to the NESN Bets live odds page, consensus 2.5-point road favorites at Houston. The total set for 44.5. Obviously, weather not an issue here. Let's just dive right in. What do you got? What are you looking at here?
Give me the points. Give me the Texans. I mean, obviously the revelation down the stretch here with Cleveland is Joe Flacco playing as well as he has. It has. I mean, there's been some hiccups involved in there too. I mean, we look at the big passing yardage, their ability to push the ball downfield, their willingness to push the ball downfield through the air. 8 interceptions, 8 turnover-worthy plays, 4 fumbles, only lost 1 of them, so there could be some regression there. I don't know. Like, I just feel like this Flacco thing isn't all that sustainable. As fun as it is, I get it. Everybody's having a blast with it, but I look at this matchup. I think Houston, their defensive line has played better of late. They can stop the run, second in DVOA against the run, force Flacco to throw the ball. The other thing about Cleveland, too, is for as good as their defense has been, and we talked about this a few weeks ago as well, it hasn't been that great on the road. It's, much less effective on the road. The one thing about them, too, they rely a lot on forcing turnovers. Houston has the lowest percentage of offensive drives resulting in turnovers, so I don't think that Cleveland's necessarily going to get the gifts that they've gotten at various points throughout this season. I like the idea of taking the points. I think C.J. Stroud at this point, it's a big enough sample size. I mean, he did on the big stage in college. I don't think he's going to back down from the moment. I mean, he obviously made plays in what was a de facto playoff game last week, so I like taking the points at home here, and I love the over as well. I think we're going to get a decent amount of points here.
So there's lots to kind of dive into. I'm also, we have, there's 4 potential options for us here between the sides and the total, and we're both going to settle on the same side. Yeah. I'll grab the points with Houston. I like them on the money line. I like them as a teaser option as well, obviously. You look at, to one of your points, the unsustainability and just kind of maybe the flukiness. That feels disrespectful to Joe Flacco, who's done a really nice job. But you look at the games.
But I mean, really though, there is a certain we're not dealing with a huge sample. How many games did you start?
So here's the thing: 5. They're 4-1 over those 5 games. They beat the Jets on a Thursday night. They beat the Bears. They beat the Jaguars, who I think might have been without Trevor Lawrence was hobbled or whatever. He had the injuries. And then they beat the Texans. So this is a rematch.
Yep.
But Case Keenum started that game for Houston. The one game that they lost was against the Rams, a playoff team and a playoff quarterback. They lost 36-19. So there's that.
That game, just real quick, the Houston game. So they closed it as 3.5-point favorites for that game in Houston. Yeah. And now it's 2.5. So you mean to tell me that
sure.
I would think that C.J. Stroud should be worth more than a point
sure.
upgrade from Keenum and Davis Mills, or where they were looking at the beginning of that week.
I also saw this from covers.com. All of Cleveland's 8 road games this year have gone over. So that's kind of the number itself. The numbers were too low. But there have been an average of 54 points scored in those games. I just think, to your point, they're not as good on the road. So I think there's that. Yep. Here's a weird thing that I wrote down that as I wrote down, I was like, maybe that's kind of a dumb thing to say. I think I trust Stroud more than Flacco.
Yeah, I don't think that's dumb at all. That's part of it.
Flacco he's played some big games.
Right. But that was what, 2012?
I understand. Yeah, no, but
who's the better quarterback?
Stroud. I guess the argument would be that
I'm getting points with him at home.
No, the argument
that's kind of a simplistic way of looking at it, but that's where I'm at.
The argument I'd be making against myself is that he's not going to be rattled by the situation. But to your, as you mentioned, Stroud's played in some big games too, I guess. I don't know. I think I trust D'Amico Ryans more than Stefanski. So I like their coach quarterback combination better, and I'm getting points at home to your, as you mentioned. So yeah, Houston's got the 6th ranked run defense by EPA. Cleveland's offense overall is 28th. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. If they're up late, who knows if they're going to be able to run the ball. I think there's a chance to get, they won't be able to put the game away as easily either. So I think Texans to play here.
I guess the only concern for me with Houston is if their receiving depth becomes a problem.
Yes.
I mean, you basically have Nico Collins and then who else? Yeah. There's a lot of question marks there. So, they've taken a hit in that regard. But I think the talent of the quarterback is enough to compensate for that.
Yeah, I agree.
If this game was in Cleveland, that's the other thing too. The numbers support that Cleveland's defense has been much better at home this year. But also just going back to the optics thing, if this game was in Cleveland and it's 15 degrees and that defense is going to come out and punch you in the mouth, maybe we're having a different conversation. But faster track here.
And the number is probably different too. It's probably 4.5, 5. But I'd still feel I would lay the points happily, probably.
Yeah.
Which now that I say it, am I just making this over a home and away thing? I don't know. Yeah, so give me Houston 2.5. You're in the same boat. So that's our Saturday afternoon play. Go to Sunday night. Got Miami and Kansas City, a rematch of.
There's the cold weather.
Yeah, this game was in Hamburg. Was that correct? It was in that part of Germany.
I believe so. I'll have to pull up my map.
So the Dolphins, they play in Miami. They have to go to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 4-point favorites here. The total is set at 44.5. I haven't been paying much attention to the talking heads and things like that. It does feel as this game gets closer, where the talk is going to center around the peacock of it all and Taylor Swift, but the weather is going to be an emerging storyline as well if it isn't already. Weather.com tells me there's going to be a low of -6 in Kansas City on Saturday night with winds of 10 to 15 miles per hour. There's a 55% chance of snow. Doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of snow. It's just going to be cold as balls out there. This is not a great spot for Miami in that regard. But that probably gets overplayed a little bit, where it's I don't think the Chiefs are going to be super comfortable going outside on Saturday night either. Yeah.
You just get through it, right?
So I do think that
gets grown-ass adults.
Yeah. I think that gets overplayed in terms of people look at that Miami's not going to want to go play in the cold weather. I think it affects their offense, maybe more than it does Kansas City. There's a lot to go into this one. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
where do you start?
The weather thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I feel like that narrative is going to get overplayed this week by the end of the week, if it hasn't already.
If it's going to negatively affect one team, though,
right?
The Dolphins would be the logical choice.
Sure, and there are plenty of numbers floating around to suggest that they could have a little bit of a problem on their hands, both in terms of if you look at the trends and in terms of Miami collectively, and also Tua's ability, even dating back to college, to play in the cold. There's certainly questions there, if nothing else. But there's a little part of me though that wants to zig when everybody else zags. That's just my brain initially was almost trying to find a reason to take Miami in this game, and especially since I'm getting now north of a field goal. But the bigger thing for me is I can't look past the Miami injuries on the defensive side, at least. They are hurting at every level of the defense.
So they went out this week and they signed Justin Houston and Bruce Irvin, which
good names,
awesome in 2014.
Yeah, great name power.
But if you're bringing guys like that off the street for a wild card game at Arrowhead against the Chiefs, and even if the Chiefs don't have their powers to the same capability or the heights that they had them in the past, that is a tough scene. That's not good. They're down 3 starting linebackers this weekend?
I mean, yeah, down to 3 starting linebackers. Obviously don't have your top 2 pass rushers, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb.
That's right. I forgot about Jalen.
Chubb had 54 quarterback pressures this year. No other player on that team had more than 31. So that's a huge loss when he went down. And the fact that these continue to pile up. Xavier Howard injured.
Didn't practice earlier this week.
I mean, and we're 2 weeks from the thing is too, it's not even really projecting out how the injuries are going to impact this defense. We're already seeing it. They just let up 56 points 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Buffalo more or less had their way with them in week 18. Yep. I mean, that game shouldn't have been that close if not for the 2 red zone turnovers. And
sure.
I think that, to me, that was kind of an eye-opening game of where those two teams stand. Like, I think Buffalo is head and shoulders above Miami right now, which wasn't always the case. I mean, there was a point where the defense was actually, you could point to that being the single most important reason why the Dolphins might make a run this year. It all just came crashing down. It's unfortunate, because I would like to see this game with both sides at full health and maybe the elements not involved or whatever, but that's just not where we're at. So I just can't take Miami in this game.
So
I want to, but I just can't.
Are you laying the points?
I am laying the points,
All
yeah.
right.
But I'm also, I think I might lean more with the total and look at the under here.
Yeah, so I haven't made I'm not totally sure on a side yet. I will have to make that for our picks later this week. My pick here, the one I have written down, is I'm on the under 44 and a half.
Yeah.
I think we've got 5 months of evidence that the Chiefs offense just isn't operating at the peak of its powers. That's not going to get any better against playoff teams or in the cold or anything like that. You look at left tackle Wanya Morris hasn't practiced this week. Donovan Smith, the other tackle, has been a limited participant, so they're banged up on the offensive line. Again, there's just no reason to believe, other than the fact that they're going up against a defense that is completely decimated by injuries, that they're going to score. And again, I've seen them go up against lesser defenses and struggle to really be that team that we've seen in the past. So I'm not totally bought into that. And Miami, against playoff teams this year, they're averaging 17.5 points per game. Against non-playoff teams, 33 points per game. Like, they are half as good production-wise against better teams than they are against the worst teams, which I guess isn't hugely surprising, but it's a hard thing to kind of ignore. I think ultimately I might just blindly be on Miami on the side, because it just feels like narrative. I know
what you're saying.
They were in a similar spot last year against, we talked about this earlier before we came on the air, but like, they had that Saturday night game in Buffalo last year where it was supposed to snow. It's supposed to be awful, windy. People are like, there's no way that the Dolphins go in there and give them a game. And they played much better than anybody expected. Then I think they were 7-point underdogs in that game. And they were 13-point underdogs in the playoffs with Skylar Thompson at Buffalo. They went in there, and it's like Orchard Park's going to be rocking playoff game. They lost by 3. So for as uncomfortable as it might be, McDaniel does get them to play. I think they could have some success running the ball here too. So I think this is just going to be both teams running the ball into the line of scrimmage over and over again. And the clock keeps moving. I think they played it under. This 20-17 type of game for me.
Yeah. And I mean, it will be interesting too to see how Miami's offense looks. I mean, Jalen Waddle, obviously not 100%.
There's that too. Yeah.
Taron
Armstead's still hurt. Yeah.
Missed week 18. I think for the Chiefs, it's almost too like, don't beat yourselves. I mean, all the drop passes. I think their tackles are the most penalized in the NFL. Lining up offsides. Like, there's just there's so many things you can point to that are just flaws on their end. For me, I think I ultimately land on, like, I could see the story of this game coming out of it being the Kansas City defense.
Yeah.
Just their ability to rise to the occasion. Talked about it, multiple times this season, that if the Chiefs get back to where they've been in the past, it's going to look a lot different. And I think this is the weekend that really is magnified. But I'm with you. I don't love it. I don't love the side. I do love the total, though. I'm with you on the under.
The game's on Peacock.
Yeah.
So reach out, call your father. We talked about this again. I don't know. I probably used my best fastball already, but I'm already sick of hearing people say that their dad can't find Peacock or can't sign up for Peacock. If your dad can't sign up for Peacock, put him in a home. Like,
well, you got a week to deal with this too. Let's not wait till
get out in front of it.
Let's not wait till Saturday night.
Yeah.
Let's grease the skids now. Maybe call Dad Thursday afternoon or whatever. Just prep him.
Or tell him to fend for himself. He's an adult.
That too. Well, like I was telling you, but it kind of works both ways. The trade-off.
Yeah.
Of like, Dad doesn't know how to operate Peacock, but he sure as hell can start a lawnmower and to fix whatever appliances. He can go in and see what's wrong with your refrigerator.
Yep.
Because he has that skill set. So just work together. I'm just trying to bring families together.
Yeah, or just invite your dad over. I don't know.
There you go.
Find something that needs to be fixed around the house.
Yep.
Make a night of it. Can you come look at this?
Make a night of it.
I'll get some wings. I will fire
Saturday
up
night too.
No issue.
Dad would love that. Dad would love that.
He'll be asleep by the second quarter, but
that's all right.
Yeah.
But then he'll wake up with the second win for overtime.
That's a good point. Yeah. All right, Sunday afternoon. Speaking of Orchard Park, you got the Buffalo Bills, the AFC East champion Buffalo Bills, which have been a wild conversation to have just 4 or 5 weeks ago. They are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers get into the playoffs through the grace of God, I guess. They are 10-point road underdogs at Buffalo. This game opened with a total of 41 and is down to 36. Weather also is going to be an issue here. I don't think it's going to snow, but it's going to be cloudy. It's going to be a little warmer, high at 25. It's going to be windy. It's going to be blustery, as they say. 25 to 30 mile per hour winds. That's going to be tough for, especially a Pittsburgh offense that kind of thrives on the short to medium passing game, or at least has under Mason Rudolph, who's been really good. I think they're 3-0 with him at the helm ever since Christmas Eve. We talked about that. There's a lot to sink your teeth into here. So what's your initial lean on this game that is one that you don't want to completely plan your Sunday around?
No, I think the Bills blow them out of the building.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That's where I'm leaning with this. It's just, I think the Steelers' defense is a little overrated in general. Now, no TJ Watt. We've seen what that defense looks like without him. 1-10 without him in his career. More than twice as many sacks when he's on the field versus when he's not on the field. So, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what's the path to victory or even staying competitive here for Pittsburgh.
Because, if there's an issue for Buffalo defensively, what is it? Secondary? Is it the middle of the field? Is it that?
Nothing that I think the Steelers can exploit.
I think you could throw on Buffalo. But are they going to?
But is Mason Rudolph, especially
in the wind,
given the weather, at least with, if there are these elements to deal with, Josh Allen has the arm talent, the ability to run, which I think could be huge in this game. Mason Rudolph doesn't provide that. So I'm just having a hard time figuring out where the Steelers' points are going to come from. And the fact that, Buffalo is kind of the opposite of, we touched on that Week 18 game, opposite of Miami in the sense that they have beaten good teams.
Yeah.
We've seen it from them. They can beat anybody in the NFL on a Sunday. So I don't know. There's just not a lot for me to like from a Steelers standpoint here. Because you're right. They did. They got in by the skin of their teeth, and I'm still not even entirely sure how the math worked out there.
Yeah. Josh Allen can be such a dum-dum sometimes, though. It's just
so that's the path, right?
Yeah.
They just
it's the
they turn the ball over in the red zone again. Yeah. If Pittsburgh keeps it within the number, you're probably going to look at Buffalo has 7 yards per play or something, but they cough the ball up 3 times in Steelers territory.
You know what? I'm going to swallow hard. I'm taking the points. I think it turns into whatever that game is. I don't trust Josh Allen. There's a chance where if you line up and get on the wrong side of this here, you just get absolutely run over, and it's 38-7. Whoops. Sorry. I think that's screwed that one up.
Maybe that's part of why I do lean Buffalo too, is because I could see a scenario where maybe even for the first half, Pittsburgh might have a 3-point lead going into the locker room.
Yeah.
And then the wheels come off.
Well, there's maybe I'll prove to be wrong here. I don't think there's any backdoor potential here whatsoever.
No, I think that's probably least case scenario. Right?
Just a rock fight the entire afternoon. I think Pittsburgh can do that. One thing I was surprised, they are 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games as underdogs of 10 or more. Under Mike Tomlin, they are 0-6 straight up, 1-5 against the spread for his career. But here's another trend. I saw this, Covers had this. Buffalo 0-8, its last 8 games as a double-digit favorite, playoffs included. I think that speaks to their general, I don't want to call it ineptitude. I don't know if it's inconsistency, just Buffalo-ness, I guess. I just think they play with their food here.
Which is that number's kind of strange to me because I feel like there was a stretch where they were taking care of business when they were supposed to, especially at home. So and then that kind of changed over the last year
I'm
plus.
Glad you mentioned it. That was one of the other things is they aren't built to play outside like this. They don't totally fit that narrative that you would expect them to. So I just think 13-10, 13-6. Move on. See you later.
So you like the under then?
Yeah, that's
a very low
I guess,
total,
but I hate that. Yeah, so I'm just that many points at that low of an under just feels.
Pittsburgh's last 3 playoff games. I mean, obviously this dates back a few years. 45-42 loss to Jacksonville, a 48-37 loss to Cleveland, and a 42-21 loss to Kansas City. So
just throw caution in the wind and just let it ride. Let it fly.
The idea of like, maybe this is like a rah-rah.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin gets the defense
it doesn't work
geared up to slow this Buffalo offense down. Like, there's no secret sauce here.
Yeah.
Like,
we spent too much time on it. The game stinks.
Yeah, it does.
Objectively bad. So let's go to Sunday afternoon, one of the more interesting, intriguing games of the weekend, despite the fact that it's one of the bigger spreads. You got the Packers coming off of their Week 18 win over Chicago that got them into the playoffs. They head to Dallas, a building in which they've never lost. They won the Super Bowl there. I don't think they've ever lost at AT&T Stadium. Take on the Cowboys. Cowboys opened as 7-point favorites, up to 7.5-point favorites here with a total of 50.5. It's a 4:30 afternoon kick, America's Game of the Week or whatever. This is going to be Fox in all its glory. I feel fairly confident about my pick here.
Fire away.
I'm taking the over, 50.5. I think there's a chance that the Cowboys absolutely dump truck the Packers here. And even if that does happen, I think they almost get there on their own. Like, people are off of the scent of the Packers defense. And if the Packers defense is fixed somehow over the fact that they gave up 30 points to Bryce Young like 3 weeks ago. If it's fixed, I'll gladly wear that. I don't think it is. I think it's possible the Cowboys get to 40, 45 all by themselves. And if that's the case, you're just asking the Packers to get you 14 points. I think that could be the case. It's since week 12 by EPA, Green Bay has the second best offense in the NFL. Dallas has the third best offense. Over that same time, this is so going back to Thanksgiving, basically when the Packers turned their season around. Their offense has been really good, second best in the league. Over that same stretch, defense ranks 26th, but the Dallas defense is ranked 19th. So I think their Cowboys can be got on that side of the ball as well. Since week 12, that same time span, they've allowed opposing quarterbacks to throw for 260 yards or more 4 times without having it happen to them in any game up to that point. In that same stretch, they've allowed at least 100 yards rushing in 4 of those games, including 266 yards to that Buffalo game that we looked at a couple of weeks ago. Since week 12, the Packers have scored at least 27 points 4 times. They've allowed at least 22 points 4 times. No one has more rushing yards over the last 3 weeks than Aaron Jones. That offense looks a lot better when he's going well. Sounds like Christian Watson's got a chance to play this week. That Packers receiving room has been a revelation. Like, they've just been fantastic, and they're very young. I think they're going to put up some points. I just don't have a ton of confidence that they're going to be able to stop the Cowboys. Got 2 of the best third down offenses in the league in this one. Dallas has scored 30 points 10 times this season. They've scored 38 points 7 times. 5 of those have come at home. They are a wagon at home. I think they run it up here. CeeDee Lamb, huge game. Give me all the overs, props for him. I don't know how this thing kind of settles on the side yet, but I do think both teams are going to get some offense here and go over that 50.5.
This is another one of those matchups where I feel like in my dumb brain, like I already kind of like envisioned it and manifested this matchup, kind of like Rams-Lions. I'm like, well, if the Cowboys run into the Packers in the first round, like that might be a sneaky tough matchup. And then it happens, and then you start looking at it a little bit more.
This is exactly the same thought process I've gone through.
Do I want to go there?
No,
now it's like
the same exact thing.
Now that you had the hook and it's up over a touchdown, it's like it's staring in the face, like trying to bait you into taking Green Bay. And I'm not quite there yet. But I'm with you. I don't really love a side either way here. Like, this might be the game for me where I end up swallowing hard and taking the points. Because, I mean, to your point, like, the Dallas defense there's been issues there.
Yeah.
And the one thing about them is they're so reliant on takeaways, much like the Cleveland defense we talked about. And Green Bay doesn't really turn the ball over. So if they can take care of the ball in this game and, just not shoot themselves in the foot, then yeah, they can hang around. And maybe it does turn into, I don't expect them to win outright like they did on Thanksgiving, but like that, I looked at that game against the Lions as a sort of a comparable matchup in terms of like strength on strength and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I think I'm just focused on the total here. Sidewise, I could get the Sunday and lean Packers, but I really have no interest in doing that right now because this is Dallas is much like Buffalo, where like it could be close for the first 45 minutes, and then you look up at the end and they win by 30.
Have we just made the same exact picks across the board?
Maybe. It's an echo chamber.
Yeah.
We spent too much time together throughout the course of the season.
No kidding. So I was going to run a report. I just haven't had time to do it. So I imagine these are all pretty impressive numbers compared to the rest of the league. But to the Jordan Love and the Packers turnovers thing, since week 12, again, going back to that Detroit game on Thanksgiving, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception, passer rating of 113.5, completion percentage 70%, 71%. Like that's elite, like top of the league, maybe most productive passer in the NFL over that time. So it got me thinking. I was out for a run this morning in the monsoon. Not that I'm a hero or anything, and I texted you. I felt so strong about this that I texted you as I was getting back to my house. I was in the rain. I pulled up my phone.
Was that in the midst of a cool down stage?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I was in a cool down. I live on a hill. I've always walked the hill.
Yeah, Heartbreak Hill.
So anyway, I'm stealing something. This is admittedly kind of stealing this from Felger and Maz, the Boston Sports Radio show, where they have Greg Bedard of Boston Sports Journal in on Tuesdays, and they do that 10 questions thing. And one of the questions they sometimes ask is list the top whatever and stop when you get to wherever. So, okay, list the best quarterbacks in the NFL and stop when you get to Jordan Love.
Ooh, all right. So, all right, my top tier. I'll
sure. Okay.
Talk in terms of tiers here. Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. That's a tier, I think.
Yeah.
Then I think you get down to the next group. The Herbert's a tough one.
Yep.
I feel like everybody wants to put him in that top tier, but I think he can get there, but whatever. He's at the top of the second tier. Dak Prescott.
Yep.
I think Jordan Love is then in like the range of Tua, Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Brock Purdy. I think he's in that group.
I'd rather have him than any of those guys you just mentioned.
I would too.
Maybe Tua.
I would. So if we're starting
like Jalen Hurts, he's been better than Jalen Hurts this year. I mean, he's been better than Mahomes this year. I'm not putting.
I think Jordan Love might be. If you're asking me if like it's a draft, you pick a quarterback. I would say those top 5: Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, Herbert. I might put Jordan Love in the next.
Wow.
I think Dak to me.
So Dak is right there. I think that's like.
I think it's a fair comparison. Those two.
See, my thing with Dak is I don't always see it. And again, so maybe I shouldn't jump off and say Jordan Love is a top 10 quarterback because he did it for a half of a year. But like Dak probably should have been the MVP this year. Like he's been that good. The numbers are that good. And that's really all I'm going off of because I don't watch a ton of Cowboys games or I don't watch them all. I've watched all the Packers games. He is like that guy, truly a special talent. I don't know if he's there yet, but like I feel like we're pretty close to being able to declare that he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
I think the Packers will win a Super Bowl with Jordan Love at some point. Perhaps sooner rather than later. Maybe not this year. Maybe not even next year.
Not to turn this into a Packers podcast, but like they are in the perfect spot right now of the non-legitimate Super Bowl contenders where it's like you got in, the draft pick wasn't going to be a huge deal.
Yep.
You got in, you're going to go play a playoff game. You might get your ass whooped. You're going to learn some valuable experiences from that. But they're like one of the youngest playoff teams in the history of the sport.
4th youngest team to make playoffs since 1970.
Yeah. Like they don't have a receiver who's older than 24 years old.
The fact that you've seen the maturation throughout the year. Like it's not like sometimes if you just look blindly at the numbers, it's like, sure, I could list you all since week 11, they have their second in EPA per play, like all that. It's great. It's impressive. But like, it's been a steady upward trajectory.
Yep.
And that leads me to believe that it's only going to get better from there.
Right. You would imagine. Yeah. Like those
in the defense, you look at you mentioned it like a few weeks ago. That should only get better because it really can't get much worse.
Well, right? I've been saying that for my entire life. So, I think that they They should feel good. And like that, there's nothing at stake. Like I know when 4:30 on Sunday rolls around, I'm going to be invested in it. I'm going to think that they can win the Super Bowl. But when they lose, it's going to be like, well, this is great. You're heading in the right direction here. So
at the risk of sounding like I'm a victim of the moment, I will have a Jordan Love MVP ticket next season.
Oh, all right. He should be in the conversation this year, honestly.
I mean, he's been that good.
Yeah. Where is like Brock Purdy? We haven't mentioned Brock Purdy at all.
I threw his name into that second sort of tier, which now I'm reshuffling my tiers.
I was going to say,
trying to do this in the moment. I don't know. I guess I would rather have Jordan Love than Brock Purdy.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, in a vacuum, I
so
guess.
if they switch spots, Brock Purdy on the Packers, Jordan Love on the Niners, like what is the effect of that?
Hard to say.
Good answer.
I just like the knock on Love has always been his accuracy. I feel like the accuracy is even more important in that San Francisco offense, but like when guys are always running open like they are, like I guess maybe it's not as big of a deal. And I think he's improved his accuracy. So yeah, I guess all things being equal, you have to take the first round quarterback versus Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, I guess.
Right?
But I'm saying like I don't know if the Packers get into the playoffs with Brock Purdy. Like I think Jordan Love raises their ceiling.
I think played out of his mind. I think the skills
are.
Months.
And this isn't. I don't even mean to knock Brock Purdy because I think he's been legitimately good this year. Like even just watching him, you're like, this guy's better than probably people give him credit for. Certainly, I gave
right now. You can't make a top 10 list without putting Brock Purdy in there, just out of principle. If you had to win one game tomorrow, both guys are healthy. Who would you rather have to start you a game? Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers?
Ooh. I guess I gotta go Rodgers.
You gotta go Rodgers just out of respect for what he's done.
Yeah, I gotta go Rodgers.
But it's close. And I think, God, the Packers just dunked all over him this year with the way everything has turned out.
The reason I hesitate a little bit is because the last I saw of Rodgers too was like I think the decline is
it's I mean he played with a broken thumb last year, but he's not gonna be a whole lot better.
In other words,
after 2 years off.
The gap is just quickly shrinking between those two. But yeah, I mean, I still got to take one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, I suppose. I know I said I'm all in on Jordan Love, but I got to pump the brakes somewhere.
All right, let's go to Sunday night. I think this is probably the game everybody's looking forward to. I hate the idea of a Sunday night game for some reason during the wild card round, but I'll be watching this one a lot more than I'll be watching Monday night. Get the Rams going to Detroit, take on the Lions. Matthew Stafford goes home. The Rams, maybe the hottest team in the league right now, the team that nobody wants to play according to everybody else. Go to Detroit. Lions 3-point home favorites at Ford Field. Total 51.5. What do you got here?
This is another one where I'm like, now everybody's on the Rams. Like,
right.
Everybody caught up to the idea of the Rams. And
I'm like, it's hard to find value in like a 3-point spread when this is basically telling you what it's like a 1-point difference between these two teams.
I mean, I'm taking the Rams because I do think that.
So am I.
I do think they win this game. I'm not really sold on Detroit either. This is like
sucks for Detroit. This is a tough
this is the perfect first round matchup for the Rams.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and this is why when we sat here a few weeks ago and looked at potential matchups, I was like, I am going to love the Rams probably in the first round because it was either like I could see them playing Detroit or Dallas. They would even cause problems for. So like, yeah, I don't know. I'm sticking with the Rams and I'll say this too. Not like obviously the offense is what it is. It's been exceptional when everybody's been healthy.
Yeah,
their defense hasn't been quite as bad as everybody sort of expected coming into the year. Like it's not great.
I think it's gotten better
I would say it's middle of the road.
Yeah, serviceable
enough that you're able to win games because of how good that offense is. It's not gonna drag you down. I think. But I don't know if you can say the same about the Lions. Like if these two offenses are neck and neck, I trust the Rams defense more than I trust the Lions defense at this point.
I think I agree. Although the Lions are healthy, finally, their secondary's gotten healthy. Yeah, I'll take the points. I'll take the Rams. Detroit. I saw this on ESPN.com today. They put out something with like trends and stuff like that. Lions didn't beat a playoff team after Week 6. They went 0-3 against playoff teams. The Rams, meanwhile, since their bye, 7-1, scoring 28 points per game. Only a loss coming at Baltimore in overtime on a walk-off punt return touchdown. I think this is probably the healthiest the Rams have been all season, or at least in a long time, especially in that receiving room with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Maybe the two best players in this game, right? It'd be hard to argue otherwise. Stafford's playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
Laporta got hurt for Detroit. That thing looms large. I think he's their second receiver. I think Campbell said there's a chance he play. It doesn't sound. He's got like a hyperextended knee and a bone bruise. So Rams getting him at the right time too. I think the Rams out right here. I don't know.
Yeah.
At the very least, I'm putting him in a tease.
I know Puka Nacua is kind of like the man of the hour.
Yeah.
Like you could make the case that now he's the number one receiver there, but Cooper Kupp is like immensely valuable.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we did this show years ago and looked at the Rams production with him versus without him, and it was like pretty jarring for somebody in a skill position like that. And I mean, we're seeing it again, like how much better that offense functions when Cooper Kupp is on the field. Like I just think he allows him to do so many things. He's kind of that guy that Stafford can continue to go to in big spots. There's a lot to like about this Rams team. And then on the flip side of it, like the Lions, I mean, losing Sam Laporta, I think, really hurts.
Did I call him Matt? I call him Matt. Is that the former Florida Gators first baseman?
I think if there's a way to attack the Rams defense, probably in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And I just,
there goes
losing that element.
Played him in week 18 for no reason.
I think, too, I think am I in the under?
Oh, wow. Interesting.
This feels like a high total that I'm all right with when it's the Packers and the Cowboys, but I think this maybe looks a little bit more like Detroit's matchup with Dallas a few weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Where, I think this maybe turns a little bit uglier than maybe you'd anticipate at first glance.
Fair enough.
But Rams is the pick for me.
Okay. Let's go to Monday night. Editorial.
This game,
I don't care about this game. I don't like the Monday night idea of it. It is what it is. But you got the Eagles. They are struggling, limping into the playoffs, and now they go to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Eagles come in here as 3-point road favorites. Total set at 43.5. Weather looks like mid-50s. Chance of thunderstorms, scattered thunderstorms.
Storms.
So
you go for a run.
I'll be running around the stadium all night. Weather, not a huge issue. This is a tough one for me. I'll go first here. I don't care, whatever. I'll take.
please do.
I'll take the Bucks with the points. I think the Bucks win it outright. I again, you talk about being the prisoner of the moment. I feel like that might be part of the issue here. But you look at something like weighted DVOA, right? Like it takes into account like the more recent games. If you go just by weighted DVOA, the Eagles rank 21st in the NFL. That's like behind the Broncos, who are not good. It's the worst team in the NFL or in the playoffs by that metric. Tampa Bay 15th, middle of the pack, but better than Philly. They're getting points at home. Baker Mayfield's injury, a bit of an issue. I think, and maybe I'm projecting what I saw 4 years ago to this one game, but I think there's enough talent on that offense that they can take advantage of the Eagles defense. I think for me, the Eagles defense has been so bad, it is kind of comparable to what we've seen from the Packers at times this year. I saw up close and personal this Bucs team go into Lambeau and throw the ball all over the field against the Packers. I have no confidence that Matt Patricia could stop something like that from happening. I think Tampa comes in here with a really good game plan offensively, and they run up the number here. Eagles offense, not a whole lot of it. Kind of similar to Kansas City. Not a ton of evidence to suggest that they can kind of get right here. It was A.J. Brown's got is he hurt? Right? Yeah. So
he's hurt. Devontae Smith back.
Oh, that's right. Devontae Smith had the high ankle sprain. Yeah. Fingers going in 6 different directions. Yeah.
That's the thing. That's what makes it so hard this game. Is you don't know who's going to be healthy.
Yeah.
Even Baker Mayfield is dealing with crap.
I think the apple or the worm. Yeah. The apple is turning. So is the worm inside. On the Eagles, I think it's see you later. We should have brought Ben Watanabe, our boss, in on this one. He's got a theory that everything changed on an audible in week 4. So he was explaining it to me. It was actually a pretty good theory. I just think the Eagles aren't that good, especially the defense. I think the defense dooms Philly here more so than anything else.
The defensive issues are real. I guess what I wonder, though, is if Tampa Bay is capable of capitalizing on that.
They're so Jekyll and Hyde. It feels like
just, yeah.
They should have won that game going away last week. What was it, 9-0? They beat
9-0
Carolina.
I mean, so that they won 5 of the last 6, beat Carolina twice, Atlanta, Green Bay, Jacksonville, had that ugly loss to the Saints. Like they're a hard team to figure
Eagles
out.
might be in that bucket at this point, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Me.
So like this was another game where a few weeks ago, if you sort of projecting ahead, like if these two teams sort of square off, I loved the idea of taking Tampa, but that was also working under the assumption that Philadelphia wouldn't bottom out to such an extent that you can that you're laying only a field goal. Like I was expecting these two teams to meet and the number to be like, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
6.5 or something. And now I'm like, am I overthinking it? Like talent wise, I think is still much. It sways heavily towards Philadelphia. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't like either side. So this is a total for me. I think I'd probably go under because of all the issues offensively for both teams. Like I think they're both going to try to run the ball. Clock's going to keep moving. Like it's just this could be ugly. I don't know. I guess I would take the Eagles. I'll lay the points, but it's not something I'm running to the window for by any stretch.
You look at this one and it's like it does make you think maybe the Rams or the Lions, whoever wins that game, is going to the NFC Championship. Just the way it's probably going to work out. Like
get your Rams tickets now.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, then you take it a step further, and a team like the Rams, like say that's how things shake out. They meet up with San Francisco. Hung tough with them. You know?
Yeah, I guess there is that possibility. Yeah, it would have to be the Eagle. Yeah, I had worked something out of my head that there's not.
The NFC is tough
now.
to make a case for really anyone outside of San Francisco, right?
Yeah,
and maybe Dallas, I guess, if you're high on them.
I'm gonna have to hold myself to this too. I think next week I'm gonna be taking the points with whoever's playing San Francisco. The Niners haven't played in like 3 weeks when it's all said and done. They've been resting guys, had the bye.
The Niners, this is according to FanDuel, to come out of the NFC -130.
Yeah, I mean, they got to win 2 games at home, and they've beat the piss out of everyone this year, so I get it. But, I mean, I'm not rushing to bet that.
No, not at all.
With my money. I make $500,000 a year. We were talking about it.
I got to renegotiate my deal.
Yeah. You want to talk about the Super Bowl? There's a Super Bowl odds.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're already kind of in there, right?
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Well, I floated the idea to you of like drafting our Super Bowl teams.
Yeah, so like
but that seems a little extensive. But
I also don't understand. Like, is it the bets I want to make, or the teams I think are going to win it?
No, I think just teams are going to win it. But like, I don't know.
It's just like it's hard. This is a weird.
Is there anybody outside like down the board a little bit that you could see making a run?
I would rather, from a betting standpoint, I would rather bet the Lions 22-1 than I would the Browns at 30-1, even with that extra $8. Or
sure,
I would rather bet.
What about the Chiefs at 10-1? Just on the fact that you're never gonna get the Chiefs at 10-1 at this time.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Like that's jumping out to me because I think the defense is Super Bowl caliber. You still have the coach and the quarterback.
I'd rather bet Chiefs 10-1 than the Eagles 17-1. Like that, you know what I mean? Like the Eagles, if the Chiefs are 10, I'm not even looking at the Eagles unless they're like 20. So yeah, of the two, I know even if the number is greater, I would rather have the Chiefs because it's easier for me to see that happening than maybe some of the other teams in that same neighborhood. I'd also rather bet Eagles 17-1 than Dolphins 17-1, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Should we legal or illegal betting advice? Go bet Rams 50-1 while you still can.
I mean, it's jumping out, right?
Also, we both hold Packers Super Bowl tickets that are what, yours is like 60-1, mine's 75-1, or vice versa. And now they're 100-1. So if you like them, go do that now.
It just feels like if you're looking in the Super Bowl market, it probably, if you're looking for like a wild card team here to just make a run, I'd probably lean towards the NFC because it's so wide open.
I agree.
Beyond San Francisco.
I've very much talked myself into San Francisco stumbling.
Yeah, and for me, I think the Rams, like, would I want the Rams at 50-1 or Dallas at plus 750? Like, give me the Rams.
It is funny to think about it like that, where it's like Dallas is a 7.5 point favorite this weekend. The Rams are 3-point underdogs, and you're like, give me the Rams.
Give me the Rams. Give me the Rams.
But it is a number thing, right? 50.
I mean, obviously, I don't think they ultimately win the Super Bowl, so it's kind of lighting money on fire. But
like the Cowboys thing speaks to the importance of them getting the 2 seed, where if they're going to play San Francisco, it won't be to the NFC Championship. So they've got one extra chance of somebody knocking out San Francisco before San Francisco sends them packing again.
Yeah.
So I don't love the Cowboys, just generally speaking, but at least I can talk myself into the path there. But yeah, then they're going to get upended by the Rams who are going to knock off the 49ers. So, or the Packers this week. Yeah, I don't know. This is
you said I think you got something on Buffalo going back into the regular season.
Buffalo. I got to look into my cash out options there.
I mean, it speaks to the importance of getting in there while you can.
Yeah.
It's what plus 650 now. I mean, they were probably down at like 20-1 at one point.
I got them like 40-1.
40, yeah. So
I got to let that ride because this week, it's 10-point favorites or whatever. Maybe I hedge a little bit with the money line because I could see them just vomiting everywhere too, though. I'm never going to feel, if I let that thing ride, I am never going to feel good about it. Trying to look up what I got.
Super Bowl MVP is another.
So I saw that, like, not to make it again about the Packers, but like I'd rather bet Jordan Love to win Super Bowl MVP than I would the Packers.
How about Dak Prescott 11-1? If you like,
great.
If you like Dallas,
I mean, CeeDee Lamb's probably going to catch 18 balls, and you know what I mean. So you get the Bills at 35-22. Currently being offered a plus 250 and a plus 350 cash out.
No cash. We don't allow cash outs.
We're letting them ride.
We do not allow cash outs on this show.
Well, talk to me after this week. Anything else?
No.
All right, we went long. This is one of the longer shows. It's tough. It's hard to pinpoint just one or two things, but then you start talking about all the games, you go a little long. So we apologize.
Yep.
Sorry, Liam. Cool.
All right.
Enjoy the football. We'll talk again next week. Thanks for joining us. This has been The Spread, NESN's Football Picks Podcast. Talk to you soon.